What's up guys, and welcome back. In this video, I'm gonna discuss with you a very interesting topic, which is how to price your AI solutions. One of the most recurring comments that I keep getting on my YouTube videos is how to price your AI solutions. How much does an AI agent cost? How should I price? How should I figure out my pricing strategy? And also in one of my previous videos, we went through the different conversations that people are asking my chatbot. And one of the most common theme was the pricing theme. Everybody from a business owner perspective, they want to know how much does it cost to innovate your business with AI, whether it's an AI agent, it's a chatbot, some sort of automation. People are always interested about the price. In this video, we're going to be discussing two things. The first part would be how to price your AI services. Let's say you're an AI development agency similar to me. How would you approach the topic of pricing? Because it could be very difficult, especially in this area, which is I'm going to highlight why is it specifically difficult to price AI solutions. And on the other hand, from the business perspective, how much does a standard AI solution cost? I'm going to share with you what things I have been selling and what things and prices I keep hearing when I talk to other AI development agency owners. And hopefully that would give you more insights into what it's going to take if you want to innovate your business with AI. If you're here for the first time, my name is Serop. I have an AI development agency called Neuronics. And over the past year, I've been trying to build AI solutions and selling them. And over the past month, I've been trying to share my experience here on YouTube. I think a lot of you appreciated the transparency and the honesty of exactly showing you what is actually happening in the real world, what solutions are being sold, and how much were they sold for. So I believe this video is super valuable. And if you enjoy it or get some value of it, I appreciate a like and a comment. I try to answer all the comments as much as possible, but because I'm getting a lot of comments, it's getting difficult to answer everybody. So I'm really sorry if I miss you. If you would like to work with me and my agency, make sure to check out my website and book an appointment. With that being said, let's have a look into the topic of pricing. The topic of pricing in AI is definitely difficult for me because of the novelty in the solutions. So in traditional software development, you have a very standard problem. Like let's say you want to build a platform, you want to connect one data to another, so APIs, you would end up having some sort of platform. You know roughly how much it takes to build an app, how much it takes to deploy this app, maybe add some security layer, have some Q&A testing. Then you can come up with maybe an hourly estimate. And then depending on how much you want to charge. So from an agency perspective, you either doing the work yourself. So you would pay yourself an hourly rate, or you're paying some other developer. So you need to pay that cost and then maybe multiply it by 2, which is the usual case. Or some people do like by 50% just to add some margin and profit to the agency. So your business makes sense. If you've been running an agency for some time, you know that the most common pattern is the ups and downs. One month you have so many clients and you literally cannot even go outside and meet your friends. And other months it's like a desert. You're just sitting there focusing on marketing or content, or you're trying to reach out to people. And at least this was my experience. I know other successful agency owners, they have like a very consistent flow, or usually they land bigger clients that they require development that is steady over a longer period of time, which makes the work much easier. The difference between a traditional software development and this AI development is this risk factor that the projects are very novel and experimental in nature. Let's say somebody come at you with an idea for generating a proposal. There's a lot of projects right now. I got definitely like maybe 2 to 3 project requests. And the main concept is people want to build custom proposals. Let's say you're a construction company that have this very specific format of writing a job proposal depending on a request for work. These proposals are maybe like 10 pages length, and they write very specific information, what goes into it, what skill set do you need. So you need to also search for people. And people usually take around maybe a week to 2 weeks of actual human labor to generate these kind of reports. And now there's new ideas of, okay, how about we can use AI to generate these proposals on a scale, so we can reduce the time that we send a proposal to like, let's say a government agency or something like that. And with that, these construction companies can win the proposals quicker because they applied much quicker. Let's say you get such a request. What's the first thing you can do? Like, let's say, especially if you haven't done such a project in the past, there's a lot of unknowns. You don't know even how the data looks like. You don't know if the result is going to look good. I know you can maybe build a prototype, maybe in, I don't know, 3-4 hours, that can generate such a proposal, put it in Google Doc. So this is no longer the problem. I think everybody now recognizes that yes, you can build something really quick with N8N, but then can it actually work? Is this enough to be able to win a proposal? Is it enough that the wording sounds nice, the grammar sounds good, there's no these weird artifacts where the formatting is wrong, all these kind of stuff? And you as a developer or an agency, when you receive such a project, is really difficult to say, hey, is this going to be 20 hours of work or 50 hours of work or 100 hours of work before you start experimenting. And that's why I think it's a very challenging thing to put a price tag on the AI development. And that's why people keep asking, like, how much are you charging for your services? Do we charge purely hourly rate, which makes some clients nervous? I had recently a client who said, like, hey, I want to pay you fairly. It's just hourly rates freak me out because we don't know how much or how long this is going to take. So how can you minimize my risk? And then if you receive such a request, how can you say something to the person, to the client, so you don't lose them, but at the same time, you don't lose yourself and you don't lose maybe money paying developers a fixed price while they are working for so much longer? This is where it gets really tricky. It becomes really difficult to give really good estimates and then actually delivering work within these estimates. From what I've seen so far in AI development, two types of projects. The one type is you get something that you've done before, works. Let's say, for example, for me, it's some sort of an outreach automation, personalized, whether it's on LinkedIn or on Gmail or whatever. And like, okay, I have some code that I've done that I can maybe repackage or reuse that would accelerate this process. You think, oh my God, yeah, I can do this in 10 hours, 20 hours. And then you say, okay, then for this 20 hours, I want to charge you, I don't know, let's say you charge 100 euros or 50 euros an hour. I want to charge you this amount. When I tried to do this, I realized like it's never that easy. It's never this easy because every client has a very specific need. And at least in my client, they wanted to integrate this outreach in a very specific CRM that I haven't worked with before, and you had to learn the documentation. Once you started doing the work, you realize it's not as easy as just connecting a CRM. You need to also maybe contact the support to be able to have access to their APIs, because not all CRM have openly accessible APIs, and you can just start querying them or just connect, like just put an API key and that's it. That's maybe 30% of the apps out there, but there's maybe 60% of apps that are such a pain to connect with. And it takes such a long period to be able to just query this in form of an API call. And these kind of stuff you don't notice until you start developing, and then you reach a bottleneck or you reach like a hurdle and you're like, oh, okay, we just spent 20 hours doing things that we thought the whole project is going to take 20 hours, and now we still haven't even connected to the API. So for this, I came up with a new solution that I always do now. Rather than giving a fixed price, I think it makes more sense, especially when you have things that are uncertain. You say, let's do a discovery phase, or I call it a technical assessment, where you can give an estimate that, hey, this technical assessment is going to take a minimum of 10 to 20 hours. You're going to be paid hourly, and then it could extend maybe to 30 or whatever, but still we at least half or even 20% of the total price. With this, you try to figure out all the stuff that are causing you, that could risk you from achieving your goal or not be able to deliver the project. So in this phase, you usually try to figure out all the APIs. Do you have access to all the data? Is the data clean enough to create a AI system or a machine learning system that can produce a good value? How is the data looks like? How is the output looks like? What is the inputs? What is the outputs? Try to figure out basically everything, at least like as a sketch, or maybe connect some quick end-to-end nodes just to see if things are flowing, if you have access to the data, how long it's going to take. And in this phase, it will give you more confidence into how are you going to produce this project successfully. Right now, in the past, I used to give like a total estimate for a project. I would say like, hey, this project is going to take me 50 hours or maybe 60 hours, and my hourly rate is this much. It's going to cost you like this amount. I realized very soon that this was always making me work way more, and then my hourly rate dropped by half because I always underestimated the effort that is going into a certain project. The only thing that you can do to cover yourself is just put hourly rate and say, hey, I am very unfamiliar with this territory, with the CRM, with all this kind of stuff. And this is actually my advice. If you are entering a project where you haven't done anything with or very new technology, then do at least part of it as an hourly rate. Usually the clients also agree to that because there is some discovery, whether they're going to pay you this or pay someone else or a consultant. Someone's going to sit there and be paid per hours to figure things out. I try to systemize this. So I offer like also a fixed price discovery. If it takes me 10 hours to discover or 30 hours to discover, I will take the risk. And usually the clients agree to that, even if the price is maybe $2,000 or even if the price is less or more. If you limit the risk to the client, even if the price is high, at least they know the highest it can reach is maybe 2,000 and they are okay with it. So in my experience, even if you ask for a high price for something, if the client perceive it as fair and if perceive it as like you're taking on the risk, because this can take as long as maybe 40 hours. And then, okay, for 40 hours, I'm paying 2,000. That's actually not a lot of money. So if that's the case, and if you're so confident in your skills that you can achieve this, it has worked in the past. And actually in my latest project, it worked against me. Actually, I ended up working maybe 30, 40 hours and paying a developer for a very much less fixed price. And it turned out that okay, this wasn't a great strategy. But now I know, because when I move forward, I understand like, okay, now you need to estimate way longer, or maybe you don't do this kind of work. Maybe if you want to scale this, then you don't have to integrate with every CRM. Maybe you say like, hey, sorry, we don't do this. Like, we don't integrate with this CRM. If you want, we can migrate to something else, or we can offer you something else. But all of these, like, don't be too harsh on yourself. It's all learning phase. I know big and small agencies who tried project-based pricing, who've tried different strategies, and then they ended up deciding for hourly rate actually, because it's the least risky. But if you want to at some point move away from the service-based business into like a productionized business, like you have a product that you just set up a minimum integration with a couple of tools, then it would make sense to just slowly move from hourly to project-based pricing. With that being said, maybe just a quick summary. So if you get a new request that you're unsure how to deal with, don't go full hourly rate, because maybe the clients are not going to agree with this, especially if your hourly rate is quite high. But break it down into 2 stages. One stage would be hourly or fixed discovery phase. I usually maybe charge maybe 2,000 to 3,000, depending on really how many hours I'm going to be spending trying to figure out your whole business. And I'm not talking about like a small business with Gmail and a Google Sheet and telling them I want to be paid 2,000 for discovery. I'm talking about really big businesses with maybe 5 to 6 different tools that we need to integrate with, and many different processes and many different people going to be using the software. So you need to see all the dependencies and figure out this whole system. And before you even recommend what to do or how to move forward, you need to kind of understand their business and understand how you can help. So for this, I think it makes absolute sense. If you have confidence in your skills, maybe ask for a fixed price and hope that you're going to maybe finish before that. So you can actually, your hourly rate would be good. But the risk for you, if you don't do it, which in maybe 90% of the cases, something's going to come up, delays is going to happen. And in most cases, it's not even you. Like, for example, for me, the delays were always maybe the client has his own IT system or IT team that is being delayed by something. People go on vacation. You're dealing with people, and people are slow, especially in Europe. Sorry about that. But people are generally slow. They take some time. They get sick. So things get delayed naturally. And you need to put that into mind and just don't be too harsh on yourself, especially if things take a little bit longer. Or you go the hourly rate and you try to figure out, okay, if I only get paid for the hours I work or the hours that my developer work. And then after that, you get a clearer picture of what actually needs to be done. For example, in this proposal generation project that I mentioned, here you can see, like, am I actually able to generate something that looks good? And I will spend the rest of the project trying to fine tune this to make it perfect. Or like the AI is just not able at all to generate anything that resembles a good result because the data is absent. I don't have a clear evaluation metrics. I don't even have past projects to compare with. And in these kind of projects, you just say, sorry, like it's not going to work. And you're not going to be happy if we now start and just throw the AI there. And then there's no way to measure if it's going to be working or not. This gives you also some confidence in your ability to deliver, and will give also your customer confidence in you that you know what you're talking about. So now for the really juice that I think people are asking for. So like, how much do things cost? How much, for example, does it cost to sell a AI agent or to sell a chatbot? And the answer that is not so satisfying is it depends. And I'm really sorry to say that, but it really does. In the past, I thought that, example, let's talk about chatbots. If you just need a chatbot that is on your website and answer some Q&A, so very simple deployment, you already probably have some templates that look similar. I thought something like that should cost maybe 1,000, like straight up fee, 1,000, and we can just ship it for you, integrate it, do everything. And after developing my own website, my own chatbot, I realized that, let's say 1,000 for me, it's around 10 hours of work that I think is worth, especially if I'm paying for developers or it's my own time. 1,000 should be around 10 hours. And I saw that building a chatbot is taking around maybe 30, 40 hours, because the development doesn't stop when the chatbot's been delivered. It stops only after the client and the customers are happy with what they are having, or you're able to achieve what the customer is asking for. So a pure Q&A, fair enough, is maybe not so hard to do. Right now, there's like, you can also hook it up with like BotPress or something like that. Maybe take you 3-4 hours to build. But the trick with chatbots, I think, a very specific niche in AI that is really tricky to get right. I think you can also see from my previous chatbot video that things went wrong at some point. You're trying to predict human behavior, and that is hard. It's easier to just put everybody in a kind of like in a box to predict what they're going to say, try to build a system around that. But when you're dealing with natural language and in text and human creativity, it gets so difficult to understand all the kind of questions that someone's going to ask. Even with AI and with a knowledge base, you maybe gonna lose some clients. Some people are gonna be frustrated, but ideally you try to fix around 70% of the requests that your maybe customer service are getting, or you give people a better user experience. But the problem is it's a constant refinement, it's a constant work. So you either maybe set it for 1,000 and then you have some sort of a maintenance fee and like improvement fee, or you need to maybe charge a much higher, maybe 2 to 3 for like the setup, the training, the integration. Usually also in most cases, it's rarely that I get a request of somebody who just wants a chatbot. They usually want to solve a lot of problems. They want it integrated with some sort of a ticketing system that if the AI can't figure it out, it can also create a ticket for the customer service to try to solve this. They want some sort of an agentic workflow that the agents are like working and trying to figure things out. Usually it's also very hard. My experience with agents have been not so great. They sometimes forget to use the proper tools. Even if they use the tools, maybe they put the wrong parameters, especially when you interact with it for a couple of iterations. So if you're keeping a memory, it starts to also forget about different things, also depending on the model. So there's a lot of experimentation, and it's not really it's never a copy-paste solution from one client to another. It's always something that you need to refine, you need to check the data, and after that, you need to log these data and iterate. So that's why, in my opinion, 10 hours of work is not enough for a chatbot. And that's why it's getting really frustrating when I hear these really low numbers, or people who expect these low numbers. And you can see this also in the video where people were interacting with my chatbot, and even the chatbot was suggesting prices like 2,000, 3,000. People were like, hey, this is too expensive. No, we don't want to pay this. I don't know what to say. It's really tricky to get, especially if you want to get something nice or something that solves your problem. If you just want a fancy chatbot to put it there and show people that you're AI positive or whatever, then yes, be my guest, do that. Otherwise, it gets a little bit tricky to get it right. So regarding AI agents, so far, the only AI agent that I sold was an agent that created this proposal. It was for a project for creating software development proposals based on a conversation that somebody had with. I'm going to show it in future videos, what I actually developed. So it actually was like 3 agents thinking together. One in charge of the pricing, wasn't in charge of the risk management, and then they generate a final proposal. It worked well. There was challenges. It wasn't perfect. It did at least maybe 90% of the work, and then the person who I sold this to had to maybe review the final bits and try to maybe do the last 10%. And for that, it was around maybe 2,000 to do the work, because it also took around the same amount of hours, maybe 25 hours of development. This is something that, yeah, people say, oh, sell this for 2,000 or whatever. But it's really tricky to get maybe someone else who exactly needs the same problems. Because also this client was very specific that he wanted to be extracted and written in this proposal because he had a very unique way of writing proposals. So it doesn't work maybe for everybody, but I think that experience also helped maybe with a construction company later on to build these proposals for them. I think the really good things that right now they've been selling also for quite some money is some sort of a system, not really just an agent, but a system that is helping a client do a specific thing. And that's usually helping them maybe getting more clients, whether it's in outreach or lead reactivation. And usually you can sell these systems for like $5,000. And the way you justify this is because of the amount of effort that goes into this. And by effort, I'm not talking about prompting the AI, but literally we spent around 80% of the work all around the AI, and only 20% of the work actually maybe doing the prompting and just checking out this one feature that is the whole thing around it. For example, let me give you a clear example. We had to integrate with CRMs. We had to build in like some user interface to interact with it. We had to make sure the data is good, the data is validated, fallback mechanism. So there was so much work that was around the actual AI. And then the final piece was like, okay, the AI generating something personal for like the outreach or whatever, but the tracking of the campaign, connecting the campaign to the CRM, being able to extract all this data, making sure that this data doesn't collapse on n8n, because n8n is not so scalable. If you try to process a lot of data, sometimes the node or like the whole server is like fall down and crashes. And trying to figure this whole things out is frustrating and time consuming. And it's not really just prompting the LLM to write maybe a personal email looking at some information about somebody. Also in Europe, you have like some maybe 10% of the work trying to figure out what tools you can use and what tools you cannot use, and maybe figure out this whole compliance stuff that goes around the topic of AI and what infrastructure that you need and which LLM you can use and which LLM you cannot use. So yeah, for these kind of projects, you can charge maybe 5,000 because it takes usually 2 to 3 to 4 weeks of development. It's not so high for looking at the amount of time that it took. And the most maybe money is still going not into actual agents, but into building platforms, into building like an MVP web app. This is where the most money usually go to because the amount of work, because usually for these, like a small MVP takes you around 150 to 200 hours of work if you want to deploy it. Right now, I see people creating stuff with Lovable, with Cursor, with Replit. And I believe like, yes, this is accelerating the development by a lot. I know this because I build web apps with Lovable. But yeah, it's still to build something that actually works and is able to handle maybe a couple of users, especially if you want to have some beta testers or stuff like that. It's going to take some time to figure out the bugs. The AI, for example, in my experience, Lovable is great at building you a template. Anything beyond that, it just go crazy and it doesn't do many things. Maybe if you're watching this video in a year time, you probably are laughing at me right now for saying these things. I don't know. These things are learning exponentially, but the last time I tested it, it wasn't so great. Also, it's not so good at building logic, but it's very good at building beautiful front ends and user interfaces. So I give it that one. It does accelerate the process a little bit, but there's still so many different stuff that usually takes so much time that you always underestimate. So this is what usually sells between maybe 10, like 5 to 15 for like an MVP. And anything beyond that is usually a project that is above 2 months or like above 1 month. Then you can hear about these bigger numbers. And yeah, this is what my experience have been so far in terms of pricing. What are the different prices for different things? And what I would love to move away from is a fully service-based business where I'm being paid by the hour, or also if you're project-based pricing, you're technically being paid by the hour, but you are setting this hourly rate based on how much time it's going to take you. What I would love to be able to achieve at some point is to have built a system that is very much replicable, and then only 20% needs to change. But hopefully this 20% doesn't take massive amount of time, because I think people sold us these workflows and end-to-end as like, okay, you build a template and then you replicate it. And they said, oh, you just need to hook up a new CRM. And they don't tell you that I spent the last 3 weeks trying to hook up a new CRM. So it's not that easy, especially if the CRM is like 100 years old and you're selling to a traditional business. So yeah, these things take time, but I hope the more we learn how to build these things, maybe the quicker we can figure out a way to abstract all these things. And maybe we don't need a CRM to integrate every time, but we can maybe build a platform where we can onboard our clients on. But that opens a different challenges of distribution and selling, and you become a product owner and like a product company with its own challenges. I would love to be there one day. I think now is easier than ever to reach there, especially if you are building things in tech, because the products are no longer the problem. You can build products quickly. The challenge is the distribution and the sales. So if you figure that part out, I think you can do very well. I hope you enjoyed this video. Thank you so much for taking the time. If you have any questions, please let me know in the comments. I try to answer all the comments, at least for the first 24 hours of the video. And if you have any questions or wishes for future videos, make sure to put them in the comments. Thank you so much and see you in the next video.